arguing who would win is a tale as old as time.
Who would win in a fight, Larry the Cucumber or Pickle Rick?
And now that everyone and their grandmother has access to the internet, it's more popular now than it ever has been. So that begs the question, what would happen if we took 10 of the most famous anime characters of all time and made them fight, ranked only by the things they do in the first episode of their shows? But before we start, some notes. Nothing past episode 1 of their shows will be taken into consideration, even if it comes before the events of episode 1 chronologically. In the same vein, while it should go unsaid, this is based entirely on the anime and nothing has been taken from the manga. This is important in some cases because some first appearances change depending on if you're watching or reading. Even though I've described this as a ranking, one character being higher than another doesn't always mean they'll beat every character below them. There are some factors that could mean someone near the top of the list could lose to someone near the bottom. I'll be measuring their odds of victory over the entire roster and not just each individual combatant. Now, let's see who would win the first episode Battle Royale. Naruto Uzumaki is a troublesome kid living in the Hidden Leaf village. His goal in life is to become the Hokage, which is basically just ninja president, though lacks any kind of ability to be considered anything but an idiot. In episode 1, we see Naruto getting up to all kinds of mischief. Right out of the gate, he's outsmarting and outrunning the village's ninjas using nothing but his wits and a disguise blanket. Naruto is seemingly useless in class, only being shown to be able to transform himself into a woman without trouble. So he doesn't have the most reliable track record as a ninja. Despite that, he does manage to steal a dangerous scroll of forbidden techniques from the village without being caught, and learns the multiple shadow clone technique, which is a variation of the shadow clone jutsu that he had previously failed to perform. This new ability proves its usefulness when Naruto is forced to defend his master Iruka from fellow instructor Mizuki. Naruto catches him by surprise when he's about to finish Iruka off, knocking Mizuki off his feet. Faced with a much more experienced opponent, Naruto unveils his newly mastered technique, creating 1,000 clones of himself to rush Mizuki, defeating him without much of a fight. No, literally he falls to his knees and basically gives up. It's inevitable that Naruto will always have the numbers advantage in this fight, but it's important to note that he's still essentially armed with 1,000 12-year-old boys. At this point, Naruto has basically no combat experience whatsoever and didn't seem to gain any from this fight with Mizuki, based on the fact that the sight of 1,000 middle schoolers was enough to make him collapse. Like, seriously? You couldn't even find the courage to knock out one of them? What happened to beating Naruto in a single strike? I don't understand you! It should be noted, however, that Naruto does have the highest potential here, as it's revealed that Naruto's body contains the sealed nine-tailed fox, a monster of such destructive power it was said to have smashed mountains and created tidal waves. While this powerful being is inside of Naruto, it's made clear that its power has been sealed tight and would only be unleashed if he continued messing with the Scroll of Seals. So you may be thinking, 1,000 clones is a lot, even if it is just a bunch of kids. That brings up the question of how Denji could possibly deal with just getting dogpiled until he eventually loses. Of all the people in this fight, Denji has to be one of the best at controlling crowds. All of the action in the first episode is quite literally him cutting zombies to shreds, one after another, and to top it off, it's implied that he just does this throughout the night without taking any breaks. So not only does he have the means to keep cutting through Naruto's clones, but he's also got the stamina to take them all on without tiring out. And even if Naruto does manage to get the jump on him, it's still basically just a bunch of children jumping into chainsaw blades. So, I mean, you can tell me how effective that is. Even before gaining his chainsaw powers, Denji was already a proficient devil hunter from an early age. With them, Denji has been pushed into the realm of superhuman. He can effortlessly catch and launch full-grown men thrown at him by the zombie devil, and can even jump across a warehouse to eventually cut the same devil in half. Denji proves to be an absolute nightmare to put down for the rest of the competition too. As we hear from Denji when he first meets Pochita, devils are able to heal when they drink blood, and later on we even see Pochita pulling Denji's body back together after coming into contact with his blood, implying that he has that level of regeneration from those two scenes. Denji is one of those characters that doesn't really have many drawbacks, though one of his biggest issues is that he's only just got his powers by the end of the first episode. For the most part, all of his combat is just swinging his arms. It got the job done, sure, but how well would that work against someone with more experience or better tactics? This is where Jotaro Kujo comes in. Now, being a JoJo, he's probably one of the most intelligent combatants in this battle. However, his strategy against Denji is rather simple by JoJo standards. Grab him and wail on him. Being a manifestation of spiritual energy, stands are invisible to anyone who can't see spiritual beings, and like spirits, can become intangible too. So Jotaro's stand, Star Platinum, can essentially grab Denji by the throat and pulverize him without either it or Jotaro getting hurt. This is even the strategy Jotaro used when dealing with the stand Magician's Red in his first battle. Only here, there's no danger of Denji inflicting damage since he can't touch stands. He's got the strength to be able to manhandle Denji too, given Star Platinum was able to bend steel bars pretty effortlessly. Jotaro himself isn't helpless either, as he was able to survive being set on fire and slammed into those same bars without much injury. However, Jotaro's most impressive advantages come in the form of speed, or rather Star Platinum's. When Jotaro put a gun to his head and fired, Star Platinum was able to catch the bullet at that range, making it the fastest combatant in this fight. Combine that with the fact it seemingly did it without Jotaro's input, he essentially has an invisible, intangible, automatic defense protecting him at all times. That doesn't mean he's without weaknesses though. I should make something clear up front. JoJo is an inconsistent series, and being like that, it introduces rules and mechanics that get thrown out when they aren't needed. Unfortunately for Jotaro, this includes stance being tied to breathing. So if an opponent can somehow interrupt his airway, Star Platinum will weaken and eventually fade. That's not the only downside of using context from episode 1 though. It's such a well-known rule that you'd think it was explained early on, but it isn't. There isn't anything in episode 1 about only stands being able to hurt stands, so if Star Platinum decides to materialize to block or attack something, it can theoretically be overpowered and hurt, which would be bad for Jotaro given what happens to a stand also happens to the user, as shown when Jotaro attacks Magician's Red and Avdol feels the effects. It's even worse for Jotaro compared to the other characters here, since a major injury is going to stick with him. He's only a normal human. We know something like a bullet can kill him just because Star Platinum needed to catch it in the first place. That's not something you can say about someone like Goku. Goku is evidently not human, and it's not just the tail that gives that away. He's a little boy living alone in a forest with dinosaurs and monster fish, and somehow not only surviving, but thriving. He's winning fights against and even hunting these creatures without much effort at all. His interactions with actual people aren't any different. His first meeting with someone other than his grandfather results in him being inconvenienced by a speeding car. That's right, not hurt, inconvenienced. He then proceeds to lift and toss the car out of his way, thinking it to be another wild beast. And he's half right, since Bulma does get out of the car, and after shooting him in the face a few times, Bulma remarks that Goku is really strong for a little kid, showing that he truly is an anomaly. I don't really like how it implies that maybe she shot at other little kids before, and they weren't as fortunate as Goku. I guess we'll move on from this. I guess this doesn't matter. Goku's inhuman strength isn't the only advantage he has. He also carries a power pole that will extend to give him range beyond basic melee attacks. He even uses this to save Bulma from a giant pterodactyl. So while not as fast as Jotaro, it seems pretty clear that Goku could just whack him and Star Platinum hard enough with a stick that it wouldn't really matter how useful a stand is. Goku is simply too durable for Jotaro to hurt, and too strong for Jotaro to survive many attacks from. That's not to say Goku has no downsides though. Being the first episode, we don't actually have any information on how or if Goku has had any training, ironically making Goku one of the least technical fighters here despite his martial arts master reputation. We don't even know if he's even ever fought anyone actually competent at combat. We only see him battling animals and monsters, which will be a hindrance if he was to fight anyone at his level. And when it comes to someone who's a natural at fighting, Luffy is the next big obstacle in Goku's path, who on the surface has many of the same advantages Goku does. He's overtly superhuman, being able to shrug off pretty much any blunt force, he's agile enough to run circles around most of his enemies, and he even has options for fighting at range with his stretchy rubber powers. So the reason I've placed Luffy above Goku isn't going to be as obvious as the previous rankings. This one can truly go either way, but Luffy seems to have the minor advantages to win. For one, while they don't seem to be that much of a challenge to him, we do see him fighting off groups of pirates that seem to be somewhat decent at their jobs. Even when they try to sneak up on him, Luffy is one step ahead and dodges out of the way of an attack that he didn't even see coming. Even if only a minor example, this shows that Luffy can take on opponents more intelligent and cunning than what Goku was used to. One of these pirates, Iron Mace Alvida, was consistently busting through walls and ceilings. She had some reputation as a feared pirate. Luffy not only beat her in just one punch, but launched her clear into the distance, with very little effort. His opponents wouldn't even be able to take advantage of the common Devil Fruit weaknesses that exist in One Piece, like throwing Luffy in water. While the episode explains that Luffy's powers come from a Devil Fruit, none of the weaknesses are mentioned at all. The only real downside to Luffy as a fighter is kind of the same as Goku. He doesn't have any noted training or experience, and hasn't been shown taking his opponents very seriously. So it might come as a shock, but Luffy and Goku average out to a pretty close fight, all things considered, with Luffy just having what he needs to be able to take the victory. Now, when it comes to fighting someone like Ichigo, Luffy has a lot more to worry about than just lacking some basic training. By the nature of how Soul Reapers work in Bleach, Ichigo is going to be invisible to the vast majority of combatants, or at least the ones that can't see spirits. Even if he could be seen, he's strong enough to be a serious danger. Before he even obtained his Soul Reaper powers, he was regularly getting into fights, whether it be literally stomping someone's face into the pavement, or wrestling his dad for some reason. It doesn't stop there. For a human, Ichigo had an exceptionally large reserve of spirit energy, being able to see ghosts and even break out of a high-level Soul Reaper spell meant to restrain him. Being what's basically a fountain of spirit energy eventually caught up with him though, as dangerous spectral monsters called Hollows started being drawn to his soul, one of which was strong enough to cause what were seemingly building-wide explosions to the normal people who couldn't see it. With the same Hollow ramming a hole in his house, punching him to the ground, and threatening to kill his entire family, Ichigo was in dire need of a solution. Without any other options, he chose to accept the responsibility and take the power of a Soul Reaper for himself, granting himself a powerful spirit weapon called a Zanpakuto, and Ichigo defeated the Hollow with little issue. It should be noted that Ichigo's spirit energy is high level even for a Soul Reaper, as an experienced one named Rukia was quoted as saying she'd never seen a spirit weapon as large as Ichigo's. Putting that aside, having a large sword is already useful considering nobody else thus far in this fight has a weapon as immediately deadly as him. It'd be especially effective against Luffy, whose rubber body only has special resistance to blunt force damage and not slashing from a blade. Even if he only just got his powers, Ichigo seemed proficient enough for it to not cause that much of an issue. However, if he had to face an opponent who matched or even surpassed him, his straightforward tactics could get him into trouble, especially if they were to circumvent his biggest advantage and actually be able to see him, as rare as someone with that ability is in this battle. Well, that was a short-lived advantage. Yuji Itadori being able to see normally invisible cursed spirits should cancel out Ichigo's invisibility in this case. That's not the only reason Yuji ranks above him though. Even before unlocking cursed energy, Yuji was well beyond the bounds of human potential. He's consistently performed feats of speed and strength on that level. For instance, in a casual shot put competition with his track and field coach, Yuji threw the shot further than any world record holding athlete has ever managed. If that wasn't impressive enough, he also also dented the football goalpost, implying it would have gone much further. He's also rumoured to run the 50-metre dash in 3 seconds by his fellow students. This is all before having to go one-on-one with a dangerous curse to save his classmates. Keep in mind that when I say dangerous, I mean it. This curse was capable of taking down an experienced curse fighter like Megumi, and could blow holes in buildings just by chasing after him. Yuji proceeds to not only dodge around nearly all of its attacks and draw blood from it, but also resist the curse trying to push him into his mouth and eat him. A really impressive showing for someone who's seemingly never been in a fight before. Seeing all of what Yuji has accomplished, you may think a battle with Ichigo would be close. You would be right. Until Yuji ate that cursed finger. While Yuji already puts up a hell of a fight himself, Sukuna's possession pushes him even further beyond. That same curse that gave Yuji so much trouble was child's play to Sukuna. So it comes down to this. A curse with a similar level of destructive power to the hollow Ichigo fought, Sukuna was able to beat in an instant with his eyes closed. It becomes pretty obvious when you look at it like that. That's not to say Sukuna is unbeatable or anything. While we know he's dangerous enough to be, as quoted by Megumi, the worst possible outcome, we don't know much else about him. This experience level and actual abilities are never specified in the first episode, leaving us with the knowledge that he's vaguely dangerous, far from what his current reputation would lead you to believe. Sukuna being at the mercy of Yuji deciding to suppress his consciousness doesn't help matters much either. Yuji will essentially be relying on Sukuna to carry him as we get to the higher levels of this fight, while also trying to keep control of his own body. They are not a team and don't have the same goals. It's just a really strong, nice lad and an even stronger evil curse being stuck together out of circumstance. Their disagreements could be their downfall against any more level-headed opponents at their level. In contrast, a pairing that does make a good team fit for battle together are Maka Albarn and Sol Evans, students at Death Weapon Meister Academy. It's their job to defeat evil beings and collect their souls, eventually turning Sol into a master weapon for literal death called a Death Scythe. To do this, they have to sense the corruption and evil in their target's soul. So theoretically, this could clue Maka and Sol in on Sukuna's abundant evil power, giving them an advantage approaching the fight. However, that would mean nothing if they can't stack up in combat. Luckily for them, they can. Sol and Maka are surprisingly durable for what seem to be just kids. They've both survived being hit by a witch's magic beam attack, as well as tanking what seems to be a building-sized explosion without much issue. Their chance in this fight is even higher once you realise just how impressive Maka is in combat. She demonstrates as much in their fight with Jack the Ripper, a British icon. Just visually, it's easy to see that she's more technically competent with her weapon in battle than anyone we've talked about so far, being able to block and weave around attacks just like it was second nature to her. To top it off, she and Sol even have a notable level of experience, which is more than you can say for the other combatants. Before they even fight Jack the Ripper, they have a confirmed win count of 98 souls that they've collected under their belt. Their track record as a team cannot be understated. Despite their occasional bickering, they always seem to come together to take out the toughest of threats, even if it takes a few tries. For that reason, I can't really say there's any notable weakness the two of them share that could hamper their effectiveness in this battle. Well, almost. Sol did lose to a naked woman because he was too frothed up to fight, so congratulations Naruto, you got one, yeah! Now we've finally gotten to him, the character I, and probably many others out there watching, thought would be a cinch to win this ranking, and he certainly got far. The master of the Fist of the North Star, Kenshiro. To put it bluntly to those of you who don't know who this guy is and why he's so high, well, he touches someone and they blow up. To reiterate, he's not hitting you so hard that you die, he focuses his energy into your pressure points, and that causes your body to explode from the inside out. This is the previously mentioned Fist of the North Star, a rare Chinese martial art that Ken seems to be a master of. As you can see, it's a pretty overpowered technique in this context. It can even make a mute girl traumatized by the death of her family talk again, somehow. I seriously, genuinely do not know if he's rewiring her brain or something, but that's a wild ability regardless. Not that Kenshiro is only reliant on that one move in his own series, he's still pretty decent at general combat. He's the oldest and most matured fighter in this battle, even if we don't have any exact listed experience just besides surviving in the wasteland. His fighting style also guarantees that he's the most precise fighter here too, being able to target small pressure point areas. So he's still above what people would consider superhuman. For instance, bend prison bars to the point it takes some of the ceiling down with it. He can even move so fast that he can strike 100 times in a few seconds with his 100 crack fist technique. So he's among some of the fastest in this battle. Well, I say among the fastest for a reason, because that's where he falls short. Since Ken doesn't have the strength of the others competing at this higher level, if he doesn't hit his signature attack, he'll probably end up losing. He has such a strong ability that can kill anyone he comes into contact with in this fight, but that necessitates two things. One, he must be faster than his opponent, and two, he must be able to get his opponent in sight for the attack. That is his downfall here. There are certain people he either cannot see or cannot outmaneuver, like Ichigo or Jotaro. Kenshiro can't see or sense spirits, and Star Platinum is already faster than him, meaning he'd likely be defeated by both. While you could make the argument that Ichigo and Jotaro would be busy with the others here that can see spirits and already rank above them anyway, I think Kenshiro having that doubt in the first place disqualifies him from taking the winner's spot. While, yes, he can basically kill anyone here in one shot, he's not solidly taking out everyone like the victor of this battle should. For that reason, I cannot put Kenshiro any higher than runner-up. Here we are, at the last man standing. You may be as surprised as I was, but Natsu Dragneel has pretty much everything he needs to reach the top of the rankings, defeating everyone we've covered so far, and it's all very straightforward. For starters, Natsu is an experienced mage in the Fairy Tail Guild, which, as noted in the opening of the episode, is prized for producing the best and most legendary wizards in Fiore. This is among a population of 17 million, most of which use some form of magic. So it's clear Natsu should blow the rest of the competition here out of the water when it comes to skill and experience, especially considering he has a rare form of magic called Dragon Slayer magic, taught to him by an actual dragon. His magic training essentially made him part dragon, giving him dragon lungs for breathing fire, dragon scales to dissolve fire, and dragon claws to attack with fire. With that magic on his side, he became a powerhouse even among his peers. Just look how he fared in this fight against Bora. Aside from getting attacked by 4 nice girls bitches obsessed with Bora, Natsu performed some insane feats in this battle. Just one attack from Natsu made explosions visible from outside of town. This was when Natsu wasn't jumping into the sky and literally knocking Bora across town for his own amusement. Just based on this fight alone, he is far and away the strongest and most agile fighter here. He even has a way around Kenshiro's instant kill strikes in the form of a projectile attack. Being the only character here with a totally reliable long-range option means he doesn't even need to get within striking range of any of the other fighters. Simply put, just due to the sheer scope of Natsu's attacks, he can likely just catch every other combatant in his attacks at once. This would also negate previous advantages like Ichigo and Star Platinum's invisibility or Naruto's numbers advantage. With such a drastic power gap, Natsu would pretty reliably be able to defeat everyone in one shot without even needing to see or approach them. It's shocking, but that's just how strong Natsu is from this first episode alone.